All right, in part one of our video on dimensions and dimensioning here, we talked about the different line types that were a part that we use for dimensioning and dimensioning techniques. So now we're going to kind of start with the different types of dimensions. And generally we have linear distances, angles, and notes as part of our types of dimensions. Your linear distances are going to be either arranged horizontally or vertically, and they could also be what we call an aligned dimension, where it's kind of going in and kind of giving you a reference at some type of angular type of dimension. That is a distance, again, not an angle. So, and we'll kind of go through and review what those are here as we go through this part of the lecture. So, as I go through, so we also have notes in addition to linear distances and angles. So, and it's important to understand that notes are part and can be used to further define or further explain things that are on the print. So here you can see we can use dimension, diameters, radii, chamfers, threads, other features where we don't typically use linear or aligned dimensions. But we do have other ways to kind of call those out and make sure that people understand and know what they are. So let's kind of take a look at again the way these should look. So here's an exercise. We're going to kind of try to identify the dimension types here in the line types. So the first line type is pointing to this line right here. Take a second, just think about what that line type is called. Okay, that line is called a dimension line. So, and again, you can tell the difference because it's got the arrowheads pointing from one side to the other, and you have basically the dimension or the feature size right there in the center of this. The next one is the line type here. So again, take a second, try to think about what that line type is called. And that line type is what we refer to as an extension line. So again, some of the important features of the extension line, note that there is a small gap between the places where it points to or extends from on those features. All right, now we're over here on the left-hand side that we're talking about this dimension right here, and we have to say, okay, what is that dimension line called? So take a couple of seconds, see if you can answer that one. That is, of course, our leader line here as well. So as we go through this, so notice the leader line in this case only has one arrowhead that's pointing to the feature and actually touching the feature that it's calling out. It extends up at an angle, and then you have this little tail that's kind of a horizontal tail there as well. All right, so now those are our line types. You've done well at identifying those. Let's go and talk about the actual dimension types. So here we have a what type of dimension is this? As we go through, we know that that is a linear dimension. So that is a linear dimension. Coming down here, what is this type of dimension? So as we take a look at that, notice it's calling out a diameter. That's a symbol for a diameter, and it's given a size on that. That's what we refer to as a note. So this is a note that is attached to that leader line here. And of course over here, so it is kind of given in degrees as far as the feature size. So and that type of a dimension, of course, is easy to tell. That's an angular dimension here as well. One last dimension type down here. This one should be pretty obvious. Note all fillets and rounds 5R unless otherwise specified. So that, of course, is what we refer to as a general note. So notice the difference between a local note that is actually attached up here and a general note that's going to be someplace else on the print. Okay. When we talk about arrowheads, it's important to know they are typically drawn between the extension lines as much as possible. Sometimes space doesn't allow us to place dimensions in there, so it is okay and acceptable to draw these in two other ways. Notice how this one is kind of showing the arrowheads on the inside, and you have the actual dimension note outside, or the feature size outside. Here you've got the dimension, the feature size is in the middle between there, and then the arrowheads are pointing on both sides of those extension lines. So those are all three perfectly acceptable methods of using these dimension lines. I want you to note that most of the time you're going to want to try to use this dimensioning, but when you have space restrictions, it is acceptable to follow this standard on these other two sizes as well. Lettering is important. So one of the nice things now about CAD systems is lettering is a lot of times done for us. It's legible. Of course, if you are hand drawing something, you got to make sure that you're doing this neat and printing neatly, and that your spacing is correct between each of those letters. So now, of course, our CAD systems makes this simple and easy for us, but understand they should be uppercase letters used. So, and the minimum lettering height is typically 120 thousandths of an inch, or 3 millimeters. As we kind of go through, a lot of that's going to depend typically on the drawing size. Of course, the height of the lettering is going to be dependent in making sure that it is able and eligible to be read by those who are looking and reading the print. Okay. So we have several different types of symbols used. So of course the goal is to use symbols and eliminate language translation. So as part of both the ASME standard and the ISO standards here, prints are universal language. So if we're writing all of these notes, and sometimes we are going to be writing notes, but as far as the actual dimensions, if they're numbers, we don't necessarily want to type in other notes along those dimensions. In this case, we can use symbols, so it's clear for a lot of other people around the world to understand what's going on, no matter where the part is actually being made. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. You will need to learn what these dimensioning symbols are and how we apply them as you get further into your training, and as you start to know and understand this a lot more, the whole idea of these symbols and feature callouts is a whole different class called the study of GD&T, or geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, and all of that, of course, has a lot to do with making sure parts fit together, or the idea, of course, of interchangeable parts. So you want to be aware of these symbols here and recognize what they mean in this class. So of course, so this chart, there's some differences that I have. We'll talk about what's going on when we get to those. So we do have a diameter symbol. So I'm not sure what they're showing with the end, so I think this is kind of a typo. So I will go through and you'll see the actual symbols that are used for a lot of these, but understand what the meaning of these are as we go through. So you got quite a few here that we need to be aware of. So let's kind of talk about some of these for a second. All right, so here is a dimensioning feature. We have a diameter of a hole, we have a radius, and then we have a diameter of a solid part kind of shown. Now, again, we talk about the symbol. So note that this is the symbol for a diameter. So we can tell that that's a hole when we're looking at it. Here we've got a radius, so to call that out, it's an R for the radius. Here we got the diameter of a solid part, so we would also call that out here with the diameter symbol as well. We have a call out for the depth. So here this is call out is saying, all right, we have a diameter of 10, and then this is the symbol that indicates depth. So we're going 15, whatever the dimensioning, whether they're using imperial system or metric system here. So this could either be in units of inches or units of millimeters, but this basically means the diameter of the size going to the depth of what that value is there. Okay. if the hole goes completely through. So this is one case we do use the abbreviation to say, and sorry, let me go back one step, where we do use the abbreviation and we spell out the diameter size and then say through, and that lets the viewer know that that hole goes all the way through it. All right. As we're talking about dimensioning the features, we do have some times when we need to actually locate the center mark of the hole, or of the feature, in this case, the radial feature. So notice if it's just a round over, so then we don't need to actually dimension the center mark because it's implied. We know as technicians, as readers, as engineers, that there's a tangency point on that radius up here and a tangency point of the radius there. And when we follow it back, the center of the arc is at those tangency points kind of coming back. And we would know exactly where that is just because we're aware of the geometry on the print. Now, when we have something like this, um, we can say, all right, well, we know what the distance is as far as our horizontal distance, but we don't necessarily know the exact vertical distance that that should be. So here we're given that vertical dimension there to kind of call that out and make sure that you're aware of it. So, and in this case, we really don't know either one, so we need both the horizontal and the vertical dimension there in order to follow that and make sure that we're placing that where it needs to be on the part. All right, and the next one here, so we talk about a spherical diameter and a spherical radius. So here is the symbology that's using to this. So here we basically have a ball. So or some type of a part that has a spherical diameter of 40. I could say this is 40 millimeters, 40 inches, whatever the unit of measurement is there. But we're talking here, this is the spherical diameter. That lets us know that this is a sphere. So, and over here on this side, we have what we call a spherical radius. So that means here that the very tip of this, whatever this uh, part is going to be fully rounded in all directions on the end, and we use the call out here or the symbol SR, which stands for spherical radius. So I'm going to end this part of the lecture at here. We'll stop the video. Then you can come back and we'll pick up where I left off in the next one.